Okay, good morning. And I think it's 11:30, as I always begin my webinars by saying that we respect the time of the audience who've joined on time. So we'll start now. And I'm Ruchira Banka. I'm the founder at Art Journal Foundation, an institution that believes in creating the creators. And I'm your host for the session today. I would like to thank each one of you to taking out time to join hands for this meaningful discussion on the art of education on the occasion of World Art Day. World Art Day was established to raise worldwide attention to the work of international artists and the ways of creating expressions that exist. To begin with, let me introduce Art Journal Foundation to you. Art Journal Foundation is a creative platform by Elevating Art Private Limited that supports the process, practice, and education in arts and culture across the globe. Art Journal Foundation shall help to create resources and serve as a platform for students, teachers, and art enthusiasts. It aims to serve as a platform that brings in resources to enhance and encourage creativity, critical investigations, explorations, and experiments that push boundaries of knowledge and practice and challenge dominant narratives. We believe that art and culture are essential to our individual and community lives and for a more equitable and just world. Talking about the art of education today, we have our experts, Dr. Achia Anzi and Mr. Avshalom Suliman, who will focus on the form of learning, the role of a teacher, and talk about if an artist can be a teacher. Let us hear them out as they discuss the future of art education on this occasion of World Art Day. Let me introduce our experts to you. Dr. Achia Anzi is an Israeli artist and researcher based in New Delhi. Anzi is an associate professor of visual arts and the BFA program director at the Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities, OP Jindal University, Sonipat, India. He has completed his PhD thesis titled Countering Universalism, Decolonization, and the Order of Art from Amsterdam School of Cultural Analysis in 2022. His research combines methods of discourse and cultural analysis and explores the relationship between colonialism, art, and aesthetics. His artworks were exhibited in various platforms, such as Outset India, India Art Fair, Yenchuan Biennale, Serendipity Arts Festival Goa, Jaipur Sculpture Park, and Jerusalem Biennale. Anzi's translation for the short stories of Urdu author Saadat Hassan Manto was published in Hebrew by Hakibutz Hemachand Publishing House in 2018. Thank you, sir, for agreeing to be a speaker at this webinar. We welcome you. We have our next speaker, Mr. Avshalom Suliman, who is an artist, art educator, and curator based in Tel Aviv, Israel. He holds BFA and MFA degrees from Bezalel Academy of Art and Design, Jerusalem. He has taught art and art history in various schools and academies in Israel. His research focuses on shared processes of artistic creation and pedagogy. For the last 5 years, Suliman has been a part of developing and managing team of Kehla, a professional learning communities network for art educators based in Sapir College, Serot. In this capacity, he has been learning from teachers of different artistic disciplines from all parts of Israel, what they do best and how do they go about doing it. The program is dedicated to the development of professional learning communities for art educators and to making artistic education richer, deeper, and more relevant to today's students. And without taking much of your time, I hand over the stage to our speakers for the day. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation. And it's such a, I will start with, since we already read the official biographies, I think I will start on a more personal note. I've known Avshalom as an artist, curator, scholar, educator for quite a few years. And when Ruchira invited me to speak about art and education, I didn't feel equipped enough. It is true. I'm teaching art in a university level, but there I think our focus is more about training, knowledge, what are the features which are needed in order to create a contemporary art practitioner. And the best person that I know who can speak about art education in a more meaningful and a deeper way is Avshalom. I had the pleasure of working with Avshalom as an artist. He curated some of my shows, and it was basically working with Avshalom, since Avshalom himself is an excellent artist. Working with him was more like a collaboration. We did, I think, three exciting projects together. We dreamt about even more and still continue to dream and work and think. And I think that was one of the most meaningful discussions that I had about art in the last years. We touched upon education, of course, because both of us are educators, but I thought this is an excellent opportunity for me to interview and discuss, have a conversation with Avshalom. I would like to add a warning. Avshalom and I do not agree about many, many things. So we would like to continue to disagree today. And at the same time, I think that will enrich the conversation. So we are seeing now one of the projects that we did together. Avshalom, we are not going to speak about his curatorial practice today, but it is highly involved in each and every aspect of the project, very enabling on the one hand, and on the other hand, very, very much involved. We see some of the installation that some of them we actually built together, Avshalom and I. So that's, I guess, a story for another conversation. The structure of our conversation will be, we will begin with some presentation by Avshalom of some of the educational projects that he did, which I find to be fascinating, especially at the level of primary school and high schools. And this is a way to think about what does it mean to educate students and what kind of capacities students are getting from studying art. So the point of this discussion is not only to speak about how to teach art as a goal, which we already know what it is, etc., but how art can feed and contribute into other domains. This is what we will try to do. So I will just request Avshalom to begin. Good morning, Avshalom. Good to see you.
Good morning, and thank you for the general introduction. And Ruchira, thank you for the opportunity to speak today openly and exchange opinions and ideas. The reason that I'm choosing this, particular image from one of Achia's works is just to use it as a visual metaphor, because I think it will resonate as we go along. If I can just say, Achia, this is just one of the pieces from a many-piece installation, very large, personal one-man show that Achia did in Afula, his homegrown town. And what we are seeing here is a white cube within a white cube. That is, it's a shell of what could have been a precast, ubiquitous, small family or large family house, but a very small house. And Achia is using it as a minimalist sculpture of sort, but he's turning it into a cave. So we'll talk about form and open form and closed form and the transformation of well-regulated spaces and forms into these, caves of where different things are happening and different knowledge is being exchanged. So this is one of the works from, again, a very large one-man exhibition that I had the great opportunity to look at Achia. And also I'll talk about this stand of which just by way of closing up this introduction, the way of as a curator and as a teacher, I've found that I'm trying to combine the different stands and the different styles of escorting a student, escorting an artist, a fellow artist. I will talk about taking inspiration from Professor Sugata Mitra, particularly one of his techniques of just looking at things being made, asking questions, and offering. Sometimes you offer your absence as a curator or as a teacher. So doing by not doing, so to speak. These projects are Achia's projects, and I was, beside lifting some, heavy sacks of whatever, of material, I was asking questions. We were debating. This is within both the Jewish and the Hindu dialectical traditions of asking questions and arguing about things. So sometimes as a teacher, I'll show how we argue about things. And this is a smaller exhibitions that we did back to back during the end of 2018. Again, a solo exhibition of Achia, that is, as you can see, is mostly empty. It's about, holding a quite large space with as minimum as possible, formally speaking. You see only part of it, but it is about filling up a space with as little as possible, and again, holding up, the entire space, which I think maybe will supply us with another visual analogy as we progress in our conversation. So to begin with, we charted a few questions or topics that we can talk about. And again, today we won't be talking as experts, as academic experts, but I will be talking more of, from the standpoint of a practitioner, an art educator for the last 18 years. I've been working with different students from different ages, but I haven't got my degree in education, so I haven't studied education formally. I've been learning from my colleagues and learning from my own mistakes, and eventually from my teaching, from my students. So to begin with, we wanted to talk about different approaches to teaching itself. We can begin by with the traditional closed form, traditional citation, recitation, learning by heart, practicing form, practicing its variations. This is to be found both in liturgic study, traditional liturgic study, as we can see from the upper two images, and also from my own experience as a very bad music Hindustani music student. The system of the guru and the disciple is supposedly all about citation, recitation, learning the fixed form. But of course, that we know that all this is done in order for the student someday along the road to be able to play with forms and maybe even to invent something new. The question of invention versus recitation and reperformance of a closed form is something very basic to all education, I believe. What do you teach? You teach how to do things, or you teach how to do things in order to develop the new? This is also a cultural and a political question, and it's a question, it's an open question. What is the goal of the teacher? So on the one hand, we have the closed form. I wanted to share with you a couple of anecdotes. This is what I have essentially to suggest to you today, of things that I've learned about education from my students and my experience. So contrary to what we've seen in the last image, this used to be my 8th and 7th grade sculpture workshop in a local high school. So I worked there for 8 or 9 years. The workshop was very open and very messy at times, but since I was a young teacher, I really had to make an on-the-job training, and I started really by rigidly forming my teaching. We had a certain material with a certain exercise, maybe a certain reference point for inspiration from either Western art or other forms of art. There was no separation from what you show the kids. But I want to share with you a particular instance, and I'll do it quite telegraphically. So 2 weeks before, it was my 5th year as a teacher, 2 weeks before our annual festival, our annual Purim carnival, where we dress up and use masks and so on and so forth, I said, let's reorganize the workshop. Let's take out all the excess materials that we don't know what to do with, and let's build something with them. So I arrived early to class. I've reorganized the classroom. I put, slabs of styrofoam and glue and paper, and I said, kids, we're going to build up together 2 giant masks. So I was improvising. I didn't know exactly what to do, but I had some sort of a vision. And I said, let's try, instead of working on individual pieces, let's try to collaborate and do something together. So again, of course, this leads to a great deal of mess, and everything is filthy, and kids are, all glued, and they come back home, looking like paper mache dolls. But it was a good experience, I guess, for the kids and for me too. And we had to arrive at some, group decisions about how to do, what to make, how big, how large, what are the forms, what are the finishes. And I said, that was really interesting. Did you guys have fun? And they said, yes, it was quite fun. And then I said, listen, I was watching this film by an American artist, and he was making these large cardboard heads or masks. And I remembered that I was really interested back when I was younger, I was really interested in the tradition of sculpture as a form of theater, and theater as a form of folk art, and also political rally. So these are some of the images that I've shown my students about the bread and puppet theater on the left, the No theater from Japan, and so on and so forth. So really a way to introduce my students, my 8th and 7th grade students, with some of the things that I feel passionate about. And I said, I really want to make individual masks of large heads. Okay, I don't have the time to do it in my studio. I don't know how to teach you guys how to do this, but can we do it together? That was the second part of the experiment. And the students, I guess around 60 students in 4 different classes said, okay, you don't know how to teach us, but let's figure it out by ourselves. And so we plunged into a 2 months, I guess, project where first we began by very small and primitive looking, primitive by way of construction, cardboard masks. And then different students were more developed, and they taught me how to really construct 3-dimensional forms from cardboard and pieces of paper. And at the very end, they did, they fulfilled the one instruction that I gave them. I gave them an instruction. It has to be 3-dimensional, and your heads must be larger than they are normally. So enlarge your head. In vernacular Hebrew, we say when you enlarge your head, you take up responsibility. You do more than expected. You invent, or you take leadership. So that's exactly what they did. They taught me how to teach them how to make something which I feel passionate about, but they have to feel passionate about. So how do you make them passionate about doing an exercise in class? You turn it into their exercise, of course, and then you perform with it. So I don't have a picture of it, but a few weeks ago, a fellow teacher sent me some pictures of what we did with these masks, and we offered a collaboration with the dance classes of the same school. So they took the masks, and the kids were dancing together, improvising, open form, right? It was wonderful. So concerning this anecdote, I would like to suggest that one of the things that a teacher can do in order to make things more lively for oneself is to bring oneself. This is what I've learned from this experience, to bring oneself, to bring your passion at the right stage of the development of the students, to offer them something that you don't know yourself how to do. And if the conditions are right, things will develop in collaboration with the students. That's my small anecdote, and I'm sure that you are also people of education, you have your own anecdotes about this thing happening. Can I go on and to the second anecdote and introduce the second theme or question? Is that okay?
maybe let us dwell, because I think there is much to unpack in this exercise, and I think what we are going to see next is connected. So maybe by way of answering my question, you can move on to the next slides, which we prior to this meeting already discussed and all. So I will raise some of the things that we already discussed. The juxtapositions that you chose, it's very, very interesting, because we started with a very traditional form of studying, very traditional. And I will share with the audience that both Suliman and I are freaks of culture and traditions and love this kind of thing. Avshalom spoke about his engagement with classical Indian music. I can share that I'm coming from the Yemeni community, that we saw the images of their traditional way of learning. And when I grew up, even though I studied from my father and not from what we call a mori, a teacher, a traditional teacher, I grew up on this kind of stories and within this atmosphere. And indeed, much of the way of learning, of becoming part of the community, was to recite, to follow, to enact whatever people before me already shaped for me in a way. I think now at this age, I learned to appreciate this kind of things. I must confess that as a young kid, retrospectively, it was quite difficult for me. I was looking for, the challenges, the way to engage with my mind. I will also add, just to balance this picture, that within the Jewish tradition, the idea of debating, negotiating, questioning each and everything is also something that exists, perhaps not at this early stage, but later on in life, in a religious, even in ultra-Orthodox setting. The idea of questioning and discussion and so on and so forth is something which is not only tolerated, but actually encouraged. That's the way of studying. But I would like to stay with this more traditional way of teaching, the way that there is a certain ways that things are done. And the student, the purpose of the student is to master that, whether if it is Indian rag or if it is learning how to recite religious biblical text. From there, we are shifting, you move into something which is completely open-ended. Completely open-ended, and later on I will add another layer of the ignorant schoolmaster. We will come to this point in a more philosophical way. My question is more, I will share my own experience. We opened a new BFA program in my university, in OP Jindal Global University, and we decided that we are going to do it in a different way. We felt that Indian art education is excellent in terms of developing skills, and I got my BFA and MFA from University of Rajasthan in Jaipur. So comparing myself to many other Israeli artists of my age, I felt that I'm more equipped in terms of skills. I did many things that hardly any Israeli artist is able to do today, especially contemporary one. For example, working with hammer and chisel and working on marble, I think few people could do it in the scales that I did. At the same time, we felt that when it comes to a more abstract, conceptual education, to opening up to what people are doing nowadays, to use art not only as a way of creating a product or something beautiful, but something which is provoking thought on a more theoretical way. I will call it theoretical objects. That's one of the terms which are given to works of art nowadays. So it's not only verbal thinking or writing, it is something you can communicate ideas in a far more powerful way sometimes through images, etc. And the idea of introducing this kind of direction into art education is constantly in conflict with something else, with the idea of trying to give students skills, with trying to, to educate them to master the traditional skills. I'm speaking both Indian skills which are taken from the very rich Indian traditions, from the Western tradition, any of them. And it is always a question of time. one. Second thing, it is also a question of approach, because I'm teaching my first year students, I'm teaching both. I'm teaching art history and drawings. I took the most basic courses. And in the art history course, I'm teaching Western art history 1. We do it from the Renaissance to modernism. I teach them how to question everything from A to Z, everything. Not to take for granted the idea of the Renaissance, to question the idea of the naturalism, to identify, and this is taken from my research, the relation between colonialism and art and so on and so forth. On the other hand, when we are studying how to draw, throughout the years, I developed a very specific way of drawings, and I would like my student to master, instead of wasting many, many years, as I did, while trying to find, the appropriate way of drawings, I'm trying to give them shortcuts. And I want them to follow a certain pattern, and in fact, to even get rid of certain habits in order to draw in a way which I think will get them better result more quickly, because everything is about time, right? So this is I share, this is a conflict that I still didn't solve. I feel I'm very happy about my art history classes, but in my drawing classes, I think, okay, we found the system, but at the same time, this ability of the student to get lost, to try to, this is somehow lost, and I honestly don't know how to negotiate or to find peace between the two approaches. So it's a question to me, which I'm directing to you.
Thank you for it's a wonderful reframing of all of the internal questions that are, on the table right now. I was writing down and noticing a few things that you were said in the way you said them, so I'd like to try and address them. But notice that you said that you began by describing these two oppositional approaches, traditional versus open-ended or contemporary, and so on and so forth. And I think that there is something to be spoken about the relationship to tradition, but this is true within every context, within every cultural context. That is to say that I recognize the same questions from my experience as an art student. Every academy, I think, deals with that. What is the correct balance between teachers who are traditional craftsmen and our artists that are accomplished in their own, trade, let's say, and the more conceptually oriented ones? And this is another way of asking what kind of student we want to have, at the end of the course, at the end of the 4 years or whatever. I think the traditional unspoken, maybe, I'm not sure, way of answering it was that these are not oppositions, but are, two sides of the same coin, and that balance is what we seek. In other words, you notice that you said when you teach drawing, you teach in a specific way, but not in the only way. And when you teach in a specific way, you are saying without saying, this is the way I teach you to draw, but you guys know that the world is, very diverse, and that there are other ways. In other words, what I expect you is not to perform perfectly, but to use it to a certain degree, which will allow you to learn other tricks, other traditions. And if you enlarge this, paradigm, that you have to look, maybe critically even, look at things that you are being taught, and also, take things from other places. This is not the guru system, supposedly. But if you look at the biographies of every accomplished artist, classical musician in India today, I'm betting my head off because I'm not sure about this. But you see, I've studied with this guru. He was my father. Then I studied with that guru, and then I also took classes with So things are a lot more dynamic. These are not closed forms. We don't live in the system of gharanas anymore. we are, we know that our students live in a more diversified world. So the question is, what tools do we give them? And as soon as we switch our minds to giving tools and not, yes, it's tools and skills, but the skills are to master something that you yourself, the individual, is akin to something, because you are a very good draftsman and you're going to be a realistic artist. But the question is, what are you going to do with it? Secretly, we know that from every class of 40 young people, 5 or 6 or 8 or maybe 20 will go on making art. Each one of them will have to find their own way, their own niche, their own clique, their own group of friends, their own mini tradition. And this is contemporary, I guess this is contemporary, the contemporary landscape of art and education, where it's different in every place, but you don't have a closed garana, a closed tradition, a closed clique that you immediately, relate to when you go out into the world. And I'm curious to know whether or not it's true about art students in India today. I mean, are there, these modernist groups and schools of art that you can graduate school and then belong to, or it's an open, high capitalist, how do you say, Achia, liberal, neoliberal marketplace where, okay, there are traditions, but you're going to have to find your own way anyway. Is it like that, or?
I think like many other places in the world, it's open-ended on the one hand, but on the other hand, people created certain structures. In India is a unique case because I think there are modernist and contemporary streams in parallel, but I guess that's a conversation, that's something that's a theme for another conversation. But one of the things that you said actually brought a question to my mind, which I was thinking actually to deal with later. But since you already brought it up, I think that's important. One of the things that our program is located in the School of Liberal Arts. And in fact, it grew from a major that we had in visual art. To be more specific, it is a major that we had in visual art in which you would combine it with another subject. We call it self-design major. We still run this program today. We have not only BFA students, but also students who are majoring in visual art and another topic. So one of the things that we said in the past while running the major only, and even today to the BFA students, that our only goal is not only to train visual artists, but also visual practitioners / any kind of practitioners. And when as part of my job, I'm going to do outreach and open the horizon of people, students as well as parents. And the obvious question coming from parents and students alike is, what about future? What should I do, etc., etc. Now, I mean, that's a problematic question because I don't know what will happen in the future. But I do know to appreciate now the kind of abilities that a student, that an artist has. And since I came to art quite late in my life, I started my studies at the age of 24. Before that, I didn't touch a pencil. So I was not one of those kids who was always an artist, not at all. And so it was easy for me to compare between, what is Achia or anyone else before having art education or art practice, and later, what kind of capacities. And I will not dwell into it. In fact, I would like to ask you about this. But one of the things that I'm saying, I'm telling prospective students and parents that I believe that with a good training in liberal arts and visual art, an artist can become even a CEO or something, somebody who can see larger structures and understand them not from a textual perspective or from dynamics of money, etc., but also from a visual one, which I think is very, very important in today's world. So this also takes us also to the main theme of the discussion. Till now we spoke about the how, but also in what way art education, and to be more specific, your way of educating in this open-ended way that I would like to return to after this. So in what way do you think it helps to learn other things? Again, I'm telling my students that nowadays artists are not doing art about art. We do art about everything under the sun, and hence it's very important to also have liberal arts education. But the question is, what is the other way around? How is the visual artist, somebody who is trained visually? Most of the people in the world today are not trained visually, which is quite pathetic, right? We are communicating through visuals. This is what we do now. And yet we have classes about grammar and language and literature, and each and every subject, apart from math perhaps, we are always communicating through written spoken language. We are using more and more visual nowadays, but there are no classes about the syntax of images, etc. So yeah, I'm curious about the contribution of being a visual art students and art students to other domains. Well, how does it help? What does it contribute, if at all, if you have any examples, etc.?
So I'll try to answer with two parts. The first one is that what you've already started talking about is the well-known, is the spiel, is what we say to teachers, to students and parents and so on and so forth, is that we talk about creativity, we talk about a very open way of approaching things, anything, about skills that are working with other people in a bringing your own thing into a group and so on and so forth, and the list goes on and on. It is not that I don't believe that these are some of the traits that art education develops. I do believe that they do it. I can't be presumptuous to say how they do it or to whom they benefit in that way. In other words, how they make you more creative. Because I think different things about the processes of being creative. And again, I'm not a professor at this. So I do believe in all these things, and I can tell young people who come to me at classes in the college, and I say it will develop, but I don't do it anymore. Because I think the other face of this question is, do you choose a life in art? And choosing a life in art, socially and economically speaking, from my own vantage point in Israel, is not choosing a very stable life. You don't choose, it's not, in other words, I cannot advertise art education as career choice. In other places with other more, with different economies and cultural economies, one can say that, look, you work hard, you study hard, you will have opportunities, and you'll have your break, and so on and so forth. So without going into what happens in the Israeli art scene and so on and so forth, I would just say that my first answer is yes, but. So you don't choose it for a stable career. It will develop you. What then will it give you? So my second part, the second part of my answer would be that training oneself or being trained through some form of art makes you very well versed and very well trained, your body and your mind, in a couple of things. First of all, the things become into being by way of process. This is very rudimentary, that there is a process to everything. There's no products. There are no products in the world. People actually do things, and a lot of things, in order for any one thing to become. And this is so rudimentary and so basic that maybe we don't talk about it enough. This is, by the way, it happens both, Ruchira, it happens in math, and it happens in sciences and in project management and so on and so forth. So stressing the importance of process. Now, process of what? Well, you begin with something. Either you begin with the piece of raw material, and you have to decide what to do with it, or you begin with a vision. You have an elaborate image in your mind, but boy, it's quite complicated and a lot of work to take whatever materials are available and transform them into. So you have to have a vision, but some of us don't have a vision. We are young kids, or we have a vision, but we lack the skills. So art training is really self-training in the very rudimentary qualities of being a human. The relationship to material, the relationship to idea and intuition. What is intuition? What is intuition in a world so drenched in possibilities, information, and visual stimulation? There are so many things. Where do I find intuition? Oh, it's a matter of choosing, right? I choose all the time. I swipe my iPhone. This is not intuition. This is, you have to become, trained with the idea of intuition, whatever that means, by the way. So we said process, we said intuition, we said, having a vision. Having a vision could be a goal. Because I can, and speaking from my own experience, I am super curious, and I was super curious to everything that is visual as a kid. So I can train myself to paint as Jasper Jones, so to speak, or to classically sculpt like whatever. But what about my vision? This is also a cultural and a political question. Do we want people, are we educating people to believe that they are individuals and that they have to find their own voice and so on and so forth? But let's say that we do. What constitutes my vision? And then how do I bring about, how do I give form? How do I give form to my idea? How do I give form to my intuition? How do I give form to my vision? And then the real game begins, because then you have to give a lot of forms to a lot of ideas, and then you have to present them. Maybe you have to talk about them. Maybe you have to respond to critique about them. In other words, it's an on-the-job training. It's a way of life. That's what I wanted to say. And nobody, from my experience, not many people understand that when you choose to really pursue education in the arts, you are pursuing a way of life. Myself included. You do not understand what it means.
That's very, very interesting. I think what is interesting for me as well is the fact that when you spoke about what visual art education or art education in general is given, you didn't speak about specific features, but you spoke about process. And you spoke about, if I will be more specific, a process that the individual student, future artist, current artist, even the art teacher herself are going through. And this brings me back to some things that you already started and will also lead us to the next second episode that you mentioned before, and there is a request from the audience to hear about it. So I will frame it as a question, and then we can continue to the next slide. You spoke about yourself as the illiterate teacher, or to use the name of the title of the book of the French philosopher Jacques Rancière, The Ignorant Schoolmaster. And this is there is a certain perception in education, not only art education, that the best things that a teacher needs to do is to disappear, or, I'm exaggerating, perhaps to facilitate and to allow the students to go precisely through the process, the engagement with forms and material and processes and so on and so forth. And maybe we can first hear about this, and then we can debate about it as well.
So just to respond very quickly by way of anecdote, what we're seeing here is two examples of two specific students from two different schools that I remember specifically. The one on the left, I was teaching 2 years in a religious high school where the students were both taking liturgy classes and Mishnah and Talmud. Achia, you will explain it later, and both general education, and they were expertise in art. So they were taking a lot of art classes, and this specific student had tremendous ability to get my very technical. I wanted to teach them how to paint traditionally, Renaissance way, under painting, and then go on to other layers. And I wanted to teach them self-portrait because that's what they wanted. They said they wanted to do this. Now, I'm not a great realist painter, so I had to go back and refresh some of my techniques, and that's what I was trying to do. This specific student, I didn't have to say a lot. He got it. I was teaching, granted that I was teaching something very specific with shortcuts, as you said before, and so on and so forth, but he got it, and the results were really good. On the right, there is an 8th grader at the same year as I taught you, this story about the mass. They were working so wonderfully that I said, listen, guys, what do you want to study for our end of the year project? And they said, let's sculpt traditional realistic self-portraits again. Now, I don't know how to do this. I did it as a student. But I had to go back to my own guru and to teach, to take some classes, some refreshing classes, and then to come back to class. The results, I'm not showing you. I'm showing you the best result. Maya on the right, ironically, her name is Maya. I didn't have to do anything. So I was teaching the basics, and over the course of 2 months, which is like 8 classes, I would come to her. I would ask her, so what did you do here? And she said, well, I thought the nose wasn't right, and I'm trying to add, and I'm spinning my sculpture so I could look from all sides and so on. And I said, oh, this is so very interesting. Okay, and I went. And this is just around the time where I first heard one of Professor Sugata Mitra's lectures, famous lectures, where he, puts this, his educational experience, where he puts these computers, and he lets groups of really, in a way, street kids work, the different educational programs there, and then he disappears. And he comes back after 2 months to check what developments, how did kids did it by themselves. Now, granted that this is a very highly skilled, naturally gifted student, I had to not be there. And once I understood that, I could practice this principle. Once I came and one of my colleagues, my fellow teachers, was absent, and we didn't have a substitute, so I took upon myself to work for 6 hours with 2 adjacent classes. Not a very good situation. So we have 30 kids and 30 kids, and then they switch and 30, and I have to supervise 2 additional, 2 parallel classes. So I would give something to one class and then run back to the other one. And what I've noticed is that when I wasn't there, kids were not only behaving wonderfully, they also helped each other. They started discussing things while working, not only talking, while working on their individual pieces. And the atmosphere in the classroom was something I couldn't achieve by, forcefully being there as the teacher. And I said, that was really amazing. I'm not here, and they will, and they behave better. So I started little by little to practice it. I would set up the class, give an exercise, ask questions, and then disappear a little bit, or go away. And then also I started asking more questions. And I use this, I want to bring this principle, which I know, I bet everyone knows it, but when you ask a question, you ask your student a question, it not only empowers him or her, it tells him that he has to deal with some things. So you are the person to ask the question, two. Like a student will come to me and will say, listen, you gave 4 different options. I don't know what to do. And I would answer in a question, a very Jewish thing to do. Well, what do you think? Which one, A or C? And she would say, no, I'm thinking about D. And she would go away. She would come back after 10 minutes and she would ask, no, I'm doing D, but I'm not sure to do it, whether to do it like this or like this. And I said, oh, that's interesting. Tell me, if you do it with clay, what will you achieve? If you do it by stone, what will you achieve? And she would go away and work. And then she will come back and she said, listen, I'm trying to do this. I've picked up clay because it's softer and so on and so forth. What do you think about it? And I would say, well, I kind of like this one, but what did you want to achieve? She would say, a fairy. I want to sculpt a fairy. Well, it looks like a shark to me, but ask your friend, how does it look? And then she would go away and work on it. And eventually, if this process that can take, up to 2 months, a student will come and say, look what I've done. So by way of answering one of the former questions, maybe one of the things that we want student to achieve is to go through all this process and then say, look, teacher, you said that we're doing A, B, and C, but look what I've done. It is different. And then I have to sit back and say, listen, this is really interesting. That's a totally different thing. Let's consider this. So the absent teacher or the illiterate teacher is the one who comes to class with a passion, not precisely with the pedagogical skills, takes the risk, learns with the students, learns from the failures, I guess, because we wanted to do big masks and we turned out, small oranges, but hey, now we have 1,000 small oranges. What can we do with them? And so participate in the process that one initiates, and also knows how to ask questions and when not to be there, not to interfere. I guess that's what I can say about this.
I think I'm going to I'm going to be very brief because this is the time to let the audience ask questions as well. We are 2 minutes late, but I will just say very, very briefly that I think one of the answers that I got today to what art education is contributing to education as a whole is precisely this. In which kind of class will you allow the process? Which will you allow this kind of individual processes to take place? And the interesting things, even in a university setting, that finally, when you come up to do research or to do art, this is what you have to do, no matter in which subject. Even if you are, I don't know, literature or physics or whatever, it is precisely this process that you will have to go through and to make those kind of informed decisions, hopefully. Great, thank you so much, Avshalom. We can go on and on. Yes.
I'd like to add something else, which will maybe open up a future discussion. We spoke about the teacher and the facilitating teacher and so on and so forth, but we didn't speak about ego. We didn't speak about the ego because what we're seeing here is something that a student can do and I cannot. And in a way, I envy that. But, right, because I want to do this. So 2 things can happen, or rather 3. One of them is destructive. And this unfortunately happens in an academic or even in informal educational environment, is that you say, okay, she's really good, but she can't surpass me. If you are being taught as a person that if you will be a teacher one day and your students will surpass you, then you participate in a greater, triumph, like then you've got it because you enjoy her achievements. Then you go back to your own studio and you say, oh, those youngsters, she's so talented. I have to surpass, I have to do something, So you are invigorated by that. And I don't know how to teach that, of course. I'm trying to practice it. I'm trying to turn envy or fear of losing one's ma'amad, one's status, into something productive. That's so wonderful. Look, it's been 9 years or maybe more since I met the student, and I'm still showing her pieces because I'm very proud, not because I taught her, but because That's wonderful, and that's it. So we have to talk about the status of the teacher as a facilitator and as something who wants to participate in something larger.
Yeah. Also, it means when nowadays in art education we have so many different kind of skills. Usually when we speak about skills with students, we are saying, yes, one skill is definitely to make a very accurate portrait, and that's great. But the idea, being creative is a skill. Being able to connect ideas to visual, it's also a skill. But I do want to open this for Q&A. I'm sorry, we have very short time left. So if we have any question from the audience, that will be amazing.
Comments in audience, and please feel free to turn on your either turn on your cameras or just speak freely, right?
Or type in the chat, I guess, right? For example, Bhagya Jyoti is saying interesting way to build agency and ownership. And we have Shilpa, please.
I like the way the discussion that took place regarding the ecosystems. And it's like developing each individual to perseverance, even perceiving others and accepting the facts of how we can explore and, accept others' opinion to develop ourselves and be together. And that was a wonderful thought process that we can take it into the classrooms especially. And the second part, which I really liked, is the collaboration to the dance, which is again collaboration and integration into the performing arts. And this art history discussion should take place in the classrooms, not only related to the unit plans. It should go beyond that study.
Shilpa, thank you for your remark. May I ask if you are a dance instructor, a teacher? You come from dance and performing arts?
Yeah.
So
I'm a visual art teacher, but I'm also educated in dance.
Wonderful. So see, in dance and theater,
yeah,
we have a very different version of this conundrum, because as Achia said in the beginning of what he said today, he said, the traditional way of studying by recitation is, if you remember, he said, being a part of society through learning with your father.
Yeah.
When we perform, we master our own body, but in unison with other bodies. The whole, social infrastructure is being played out. This is what dance and play is. So you guys are, very fortunate in music, in dance, in theater, where the individual is like, to me, it's more complex in a good way. How you perform yourself within the context, within the social context. It is built into the system, into the art form.
Yeah. So I could connect the talks and discussion how we can perform and take it together.
Taking more questions and comments.
Namaste, Mr. Avshalom. Even I connected with the, the cardboard activity, the face mask. I also had taken cardboard thing in my class 6, and I told them do whatever you want out of that cardboard, okay? And they came up with wonderful ideas. Each one of them were like very different and unique. Like someone came with, some standing house, like, flat, but with 3D kind of this thing. Someone came with the Scorpio. Okay. Someone came with the finger ring, and that too, like a real one, like that idea, which I never taught them. Okay. They figured it out and they connected with it and they brought in their ideas, and every one of them were like, with different ideas. So it was really wonderful to see. So I just connected with your face mask, and that was really interesting. And I love both. Yeah.
Sorry, please.
So both your anecdotes were really interesting. They were so, very well connected. Like, I could connect it.
Can I ask, at the end of this project, did you guys present your works to other teachers or the school community? Did you make a small exhibition?
Yes, yes. There is something called MLV where they show it during that time. So it was really nice.
And what was the experience, to put it very shortly, what was the experience of the students when they saw the works together and they showed them the works to other people?
they were like questioning who did this, how you did, and all those, like they were asking. It was like class 6 from different sections, like class 6 red, 6 blue, like that. So all the three class had different ideas, and they were like questioning each other.
So I guess this is a very basic thing to do after you finish your personal project, where you put your piece of the puzzle or the mosaic alongside other pieces, and then different audiences come and they see the big picture, and you say, this is mine, but I'm a part of a bigger picture. That's again our version of this is my solo, but this is, the entire composition of the entire company. And I think this is a very valuable tool for us as teachers. How do you show your work as part of a larger project? Again, this is, practicing our social beings. This is my part, this is a larger group. And this is the dynamics that we are educating for. My responsibility or my voice, what is the larger song? What is the larger composition? And I think so, this is, so thank you for the counter anecdote.
Ruchira, we are, now this is your time and jurisdiction, so.
Before we close, I want to share one concern. It's not question, but nowadays this young generation, where we talk about what we learn from our art educators, physical work like look and feel and touch, right? This generation is more about a device, digital art.
Yeah.
Right. So when we introduce any lesson or new activity, something, so there is always question, sir, can we do one digital art? Sir, can we go for this digital? And it's a very difficult in measurement when we go for digital, which application, how much taken from the ready material from the digital. So I'm just want to this is not from across all the teachers, but art educators facing this younger generational problem when we give them freedom for the material selection.
So if I understand correctly, Nirav, the crossing over into the digital and the crossovers, they pose a lot of questions, and I'm sure that there's a lot of academic writing and thinking about this. I think that if to recapitulate to one of the former questions, what can we offer in terms of education? Maybe if we learn how to learn and let sometimes our students teach us, guide us into the digital world, let's say, and we do this together, but we still offer them the traditional touch the material sensibilities. We are building a complete human being. So we have some things to offer by way of, so to speak, traditional ways. And I don't know what you guys think, but I think that the more digital we become as a civilization, the more we will want to really clamp our feet on, on a solid ground and make dance movements. And we would really want to speak with one another and touch materials. And they could be, infinitely more and more materials. But I believe that the basic human traits of body and mind will essentially remain the same.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other audience who would want to add thoughts? Okay. I think this session was too short for me because there's a lot of learning that was happening, and I'm very glad that we were able to organize this and look forward to many more such discussions and insights into how you've been able to take learning into the classroom. Thought of absent teacher actually, makes me relate to what the real meaning of a facilitator is. I think that really inspires me. I have been talking about learning centers in my classrooms, but yes, being absent and giving them the freedom to learn on their own is something I believe then can absolutely take them to the next level of learning. And of course, as you say, that pursuing art is a way of pursuing life. So I completely believe in this, and I'm sure all the artists sitting out here do agree to this fact as well. Thank you so much, Dr. Anzi and Mr. Suliman, for being a part of this wonderful discussions and wonderful insights that you've given us. Thank you, audience, for being interactive and for sparing our time today. I think on the occasion of World Art Day, we've been able to learn a lot, and we've been able to celebrate the way we wish to, actually. We look forward to many more sessions, and in case the audience would want to be in touch with us, I'm going to share with you the WhatsApp link. We are all on a group, actually. You can be in touch with us. I'm also going to share a Google review link. That might make a lot of difference for us, because these days it's more about knowing each other through reviews. So sharing the link with you all on chat. Looking forward to have your reviews if you found the session useful, and looking forward for many more like this. Thank you so much. Thank you, and have a great day ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Namaste.
I'm glad. Thank you.